I'm Alan Guskin, and I served in Thailand I was in the Peace Corps from October 1961 to April 1964. I was trained at the University of Michigan, and then went to Thailand January 1962, and then served about 27 months in country.
Now back to 1960, and maybe just images that pop into your head from back then that have an emotion hooked to it.
It was such a, I mean, those days were such heady days. I mean, I can't, for the life of me, I'll never be able to explain why I did what I did when I did it. It was just like the total alignment of the stars, if you will. As you look at the story, it is impossible to predict that this would have happened. There are too many things had to go in a certain way for the whole thing to work. One, I had to go to and Judy had to go to the event when Kennedy spoke. We then had to go to the event when Bowles spoke. We then had to decide, well, let's write something. We're not newspaper letter writers. We never wrote a letter to the Michigan Daily before, and then we write a letter. Then we don't know Tom Hayden from a hole in the wall. Then we meet Tom Hayden and we push him to publish it. He didn't take much pushing, and then the events in the sit-in movement, and then in February of 1960, and Tom Hayden sort of getting his consciousness growing as a result of going to Berkeley and Los Angeles, and in 1960. So he's receptive now to student activism, and then my taking the risk.
Now the risk you took was
getting involved in student activism related to the Peace Corps. Graduate students didn't get involved. I mean, this is 1960. Undergraduates, students for the most part, did get involved. And the faculty were some faculty were not happy. I wasn't doing the job fully that I was supposed to do because I was running around giving speeches and organizing, and after October 21st, 1960, I mean, my life was consumed by doing things related to the student Peace Corps movement. And after the election, I was asked to speak at universities, a good number of universities in Michigan. In my highest terms, it was a flow. It just flowed. One thing flowed into another. Going to Washington to attend a meeting on international development, which a professor here was advisor to our group, Sam Hayes, asked me to do. I went. I was a third-year graduate student. What was I doing at a Society for International Development conference with all these big guns from State Department and so on? And then there was a session on the Peace Corps that he particularly wanted me to go to. And all these people are saying how this, these students are not going to join. I mean, they're not going to apply. And if they go overseas, it's going to be difficult work. You can't send more than 100, 200. And I was in the back of the room, and I got up and said, "You're wrong." I mean, I said, I can tell you the students will come out in droves for this, and you will not be able to keep them out. And I just went on like that for 10 minutes. I mean, what prompted me to say it? Well, I've been living it for months now, just doing this, but I just got up. And then Chester Bowles' wife came up. Chester Bowles was, as you know, it came in after Kennedy and talked about his son and daughter-in-law in Nigeria in the African American Institute project there, like a Peace Corps project. And his wife came up to me, and a very elegant woman, tall, and she said, "Fantastic! What you said was perfect." I said, "My son and daughter-in-law telling the same story that Chester Bowles told, which started the whole thing." It's great. So, and then it went on. Things we were just. It just flew. It just flowed. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. And we just kept on going. Well, of course, meeting Kennedy. I mean, within 3 weeks, Kennedy gives us, after he comes to Ann Arbor, he gives this major speech at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, which he comes out for a Peace Corps. And he mentions the, excuse me, he mentions the group at the University of Michigan that responded to him, and then he wants to see us. I mean, Millie Jeffrey, who was the campaign manager for Kennedy in the state of Michigan, who was a connection between our group and Kennedy's camp because her daughter was an activist on the campus. Yeah. It's another star that was aligned. What's the probability that somebody who's a campaign manager for the Kennedy in the state of Michigan and director of community relations at UAW has a daughter who's on the campus? I mean, the probabilities are not very high. But anyway, that's so Millie Jeffrey calls and says, you know, I mean, the senator would like to talk with you. Okay. I mean, we're just little old graduate students at the University of Michigan. This is not, you know, we're not big people. And so we then, with a bunch of other people who were leaders of different parts of this group, went down to see him in Toledo. And no press. He just wanted to talk with us. The only press was Michigan Daily, and there's a famous picture of Judy and giving him the petitions and me standing next to him and other people around, just in front of the Carolyn II plane, and there was Kennedy.
So you remember him coming out of the plane?
Well, yeah. Well, I remember going on the tarmac, and I don't remember him coming down.
But he was out there.
He was out there right in front, yeah. And he just wanted to talk to us. We talked to him 10 or 15 minutes. I asked him if he was serious, and he said, I remember to this day, he looked at me and he said, until Tuesday, we'll worry about this country. After Tuesday, the world. You know, it's kind of very dramatic. And then he went off to Toledo to give a speech. Another star aligned. He comes back from San Francisco. He could go anywhere in the country, and we're not going to be able to see him. He goes to Toledo. It's 25 miles or 20 miles away from Ann Arbor. So, I mean, it's kind of fascinating. And then we met his Ted Sorensen, his chief aide, and Richard Goodwin. Time, or this was later? Just right after we talked to him. Okay. And Richard Goodwin, a speechwriter, well-known guy, and he, the both of them said, "Are you the first brigade of the Peace Corps?" It's kind of cute. Anyway, so that's another picture in my head. So. Well, everything from October 14th until that day in November 3rd was just everything just sort of coming together. Not unlikely to happen. And even in Washington, I remember visiting Senator Hart, Philip Hart, very famous, very well-known senator.
He sent me my telegram to join the Peace Corps. Right?
Did he really? Well, we went in to see him. I don't know how we got in to see him, but, you know, we were residents of the state of Michigan, I guess. And he heard about us a little bit. And so we're talking with him, and we said, you got to come out for the Peace Corps. He said, well, you really have to. It's important. You got to influence the president. He can't just drop this. And he looks, he said, you know, I got to follow the lead of my president. The Democratic Party, same party. I got to follow his lead. I'll have to wait for him to come out. We said, no, you can't wait for him. You got to come, you know. And it's kind of funny for us to be talking to him that way. But anyway, next day a press release comes out. He comes out for the Peace Corps. Kind of interesting. And so in the Washington Post wanted to interview us. We were not easy to find. We finally sat down with him. Not, again, not naive about, I mean, we knew about what the paper, the Washington Post was, but I mean, we shouldn't have made it difficult for a reporter to talk to us from the Washington Post. So what we did. And so those are little stories. And then the conference and the march where I introduced Senator Humphrey, who was my father's hero.
Now say more about where did you, when you introduced
Well, there's a conference on the Peace Corps, which 400 representatives from 400 campuses came together, and we, from Michigan and the students at American University and the National Student Association, jointly created this conference.
In D.C.?
In D.C., at American University. And we had a previous conference December 9th and 10th in Ann Arbor, Michigan, on the Peace Corps, in which we had a huge bunch of faculty, students, for 2 days, studied different parts of the Peace Corps, and we developed working papers from that conference that that we used in the conference in Washington. And in fact, the December 9th and 10th conference is Tom Hayden's first public speech. So it's got a cute little story. Anyway, the conference was held the end of March. Peace Corps was authorized March 1st. So we had been planning this for a number of months. Shriver gave his first speech as a Peace Corps director at that conference, and Judy introduced him. Senator Humphrey gave a speech at the conference, and I introduced him. So, a lot of stories.
Was you say Humphrey was your dad's hero? Was your dad around then?
Yeah, let's see, sure, 1960. He died in 1979. Is that right? Yeah, 1979. Yeah, so no, he was around. Then we tell a story. My father was not. He was a very easygoing, simple guy in many ways, and he ran a little restaurant supply business that wasn't that successful.
Where was this?
In New York and Asbury Park, New Jersey. But he was we always talked politics, and Humphrey was liberal and a good guy, civil rights advocate, and so it was very special for me. And then I had to brief him, because he comes into the room. He comes into the conference. Of course, he comes in maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes before he's supposed to speak, and he wants to know what's going on. And the Young Americans for Freedom, who were at the conference, a conservative group, it's the first national conference they were able to go to, in that, which included anybody but themselves. And we fought to have everybody there. We said the Peace Corps is not political. It's got to have. Anyway, they acted very badly, called us pinkos, communists, and all kinds of nonsense. Anyway, so Humphrey wants to know what's going on, so we tell him. I'm sort of, as a senator comes in, third-year graduate student, briefing him about what he should say. And the most amazing speech. He remembered everything I said and took that crowd up and down. They were standing up and cheering, and the Young Americans for Freedom had their head in their hands. It was just very precious. So, there's a moments.